Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to School Food for Thought, the SNA podcast. I am super excited to be here again with Laura, Bruno from Buena Vista Foods, and Shannon Solomon from Aurora Public Schools in Colorado. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is a very interesting one. And when we were preparing for this podcast, one thing that you said, Shannon, really kind of like opened my mind. So I want to welcome everybody in the audience and thank you guys for being here. But I really want us to start with the definition of processed foods.
So to me, and I think when I'm meeting with parents or meeting with students and educating it, I think it's really getting, we words matter, right? Like words really matter. And so we get hung up on that word processed. And somewhere along the way, I feel like it's been created to be a bad word. Processed is bad. And so what I start to teach is when you cut a cucumber open, you've now processed it. It's the definition is away from its original state. So we process everything. We process it at our house, in our kitchens, our manufacturers process. And so it's really starting with why in your mind, what are you perceiving when you're saying there's too much processed foods? Help me understand that with my menu, and that's where I really start, is breaking it down to where we're at there, and then we go from there to really look at the menu concerns or those kinds of things.
Yes, thank you. What about you, Laura? I know you're a registered dietitian. When you hear process, what comes to mind, and how do you go about educating people?
Yeah, so I think similar, we think the same way for the processing definition, and as a baked goods manufacturer, we process everything, but I always think in my head, ultra processed is probably the foods that we want to limit or stay away from and not have every day. And that's the difference to me between a processed food like cutting a cucumber or baking a muffin versus an ultra processed food, which would be something like a soft drink with high fructose corn syrup, or a potato chip or something like that. Those are ultra processed, and those foods have negative nutritional benefits to them. So I always try and just separate those out. Stay away from the ultra processed or limit them, but processing is necessary, and that's what we do when we eat every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is like there's a lot, you guys have been hearing a lot about it. We all have heard a lot about it. The farm to school and, scratch cooking. And I think the session here I wanted to explore with you too is the balance, right? Because it's a capacity issue. It's a cost issue. How do you operate a program? How do you offer children food that is nutritious, that is delicious? But at the same time, you can do that in your budget, right? It's realistic because a lot of things sometimes it's always like pie in the sky, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you balance those things? How do you partner? And what kinds of foods you bring in versus the ones that you make from scratch? What's your recipe for that, Shannon?
Absolutely. Thank you, Danielle. And I think the biggest thing for me is also taking into consideration the labor and the toll it takes on my staff, right? So what can we do and what can't we do? And the minute we can't do it, or it doesn't make sense to do it. So we had a bakery where we made all of our homemade hamburger buns. And we're talking 27,000 hamburger buns a day out of my bakery. Cost effectively, and the product that we were making wasn't being held correctly by my staff. It wasn't the right product to be making. And so before I did it, I did a whole cost analysis, what was it taking on my staff, and then really looking at a clean label, and ours was whole grain hamburger bun that I could purchase for the handling and the efficiency. So it's looking at your continuous improvement. Where can you do better? And if a manufacturer can do better than we can, even at a product that we're making, and is willing to keep it clean label, quality, delicious, and nutritious, like all three, for our students, why wouldn't I let them do the massive amount of work it takes to do it on a high volume, buy it from them? It's still a scratch, semi-scratch, whatever, I talk to the parents, it's still a low processed food that's clean. I couldn't and shouldn't do it better at my place when a manufacturer can do it on their place so much better than I could do. And I take taco meat, for example, or another delicious product that's out there that I love. But taco meat, I don't have the infrastructure to make homemade taco meat in my kitchens. Some of my kitchens that I serve out of, 250 kids or more, are smaller than this table we're sitting at right now.
Wow.
And I have very limited equipment. And I don't have a full-blown commissary. We're working on it. So taco meat with a clean label, and those of you that know, you look at that label, that is still a scratch-made product. That was a raw meat product seasoned with low sodium, meets all the USDA requires. That is still a scratch product. I'm just reheating it and serving it. And so it's really educating that. And I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't do it instead of that manufacturer, because they do it and they do it well. And we have commissaries out there, manufacturers that I say are the commissary for us K-12 operators who don't have one. And you look for those manufacturers that are your partner that can do that for you. We have a few RDs, but a chef that we bring on all our beans, we bring in all our product, and there's a family-owned and operated commissary about 7 miles, 4 to 7 miles away from my office. We partner with them. They take all of our products, all the things, they take it all. It's our recipe. They created it and they make it for us. It's a scratch-made product. It's not made on an Aurora Public Schools property. It's made at a commissary kitchen where they do commissary for restaurants. But they also do my commissary as well. My green chili, my marinara sauce, my beans, my cheese sauce. They do all of that. It's our recipe. They make it for us. And that's all scratch, low processed, beautiful products that kids love. And our tomato soup. Our kids, we've put against Panera, and they like ours better.
Oh, wow.
And it comes out of that commissary.
Your recipe.
Our recipe.
Yeah.
They make it for us. But we don't have a commissary, but it's thinking outside the box and working with our manufacturers to say, if we can make what I call the Blake Shelton, Gwen Stefani, coming across, taking two worlds together, right? Restaurant and us together and getting it for those kids, but it can't be it has to be a whole grain product that is served in restaurants for us, but the kids know it, they love it, it's delicious, quality, and nutritious. That's a win. And we can't do it, but a manufacturer who partners with you can. And it's educating those parents and those kids when they do question, oh, you're just highly processed. What part of my menu are you questioning? Let's talk through it. And sometimes I have to say, yeah, it's a Pop-Tart, and I'm going to offer it because it's easier on my staff. It's an offering. It's not the only thing we have. It's what I call the trust. We offer cereal. We offer those quick things that the kids can grab because then they know they're going to get something. But we want to lead them to that other protein, other sustainable product that they get in the mornings or the afternoons. But the stuff that we offer as those quick choices, it's always a choice because they know they're going to get something.
And sometimes they want variety, right? They want something today
Yeah.
and something different tomorrow.
100%.
But I think what you talk about, Shannon, is about partnership, right? And
Yes.
you use the word trust too, right? The parents have to trust you.
Yeah.
You have to trust your partners, right? To
100%,
know that
yeah.
they will do your recipe to your specs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Laura, you can talk about that a little bit. Before we start talking today, you talked about how the relationship kind of shift during COVID.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think, during pre-COVID, especially for us as manufacturers, we had we had great relationships, but they weren't as strong and deep relationships until we went through COVID. And I think we can all to attest to that there were some champion manufacturers out there who really knocked it out of the park during COVID with providing food components or full meals for students across the country. And since then, for us in particular at Buena Vista Foods, we've just strengthened those relationships. Everything that we did through COVID has just gotten stronger. And even, competitors, we're colleagues. We were doing meal kits and we had other manufacturers and competitors' product coming into our plant. And it wasn't a competitive thing and, oh, you can't look at our product. It was, we were helping each other. And we're all friends. And, we just we just all pulled together. And so it's just continued. It's a whole different relationship feeling now, at least from my perspective as a manufacturer.
Yeah. What about the partnerships with schools too? Like, Shannon talked about, like, how has that changed? So Shannon mentioned she had a bakery, and now she realized, it was a business decision that her staff wasn't the best choice to make those specific buns, right? And then you have to turn into someone who you trust that will do that at a high quality. So have you seen that more?
I think yes, and from Shannon too. So we don't do the hamburger buns, but we're obviously doing other bakery products. But we have a lot of school districts who come to us with the speed scratch request. What could we do? So we're doing bakery mixes or frozen pucks, things like that, to help out qualify for the speed scratch. Because I think every state may define speed scratch differently, and some states have extra funding for that, especially in California, where we're based out of. But I'd say one of the biggest things Shannon did was, so we make a ham and cheese croissant for a national coffee chain, and we had the idea that we wanted to make that K-12 compliant and bring it into the schools. Shannon was the first one who raised her hand and said, pick me, I'll test it. And and we tested it. You were the first district to test it.
And it is in that big chain. It is what kids know and they love. And so when you bring that delicious quality restaurant product into your high schools, they choose it. And it is a delicious product. And it is restaurant high, like that's what the kids want. And especially,
that's what they see, right?
Exactly. And so it's really finding that and challenging the manufacturers to say, can you make this a K-12 approved item? And when you see it, when you're out in the field, a breakfast burrito or something of that nature, how do I make this K-12 compliant without losing its quality brand appeal? And so, and that's what, everything is processed. And so it's really just minimally doing it and keeping it to its original state. I mean, we roast vegetables. It's delicious. A little seasoning, little on the grill. That's processing them in a different way, and it's still a delicious product. So to me, and with the partnership that you're talking about, what I saw over COVID was manufacturers coming together for one goal, was to get us food to serve the kids, these boxes, and those kind of partnerships still stay together and supportive. And so I remember when I first became a director 7 years ago, because I started out as a kitchen manager. And when I first became a director 7 years ago, I was afraid to talk to manufacturers, a little bit intimidated, like, are they just trying to sell to me? Like, whatever. And then, my true colors came out where I'm like, this is what I need. This is what I want for the kids. And then other manufacturers were like, okay, how can we do that? And then some manufacturers like, nah, I don't really want to work on that.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's okay. And then I just moved on. And then I found those manufacturers and partners that are like, that's kind of crazy that you think that we could do that. And I'm like, so let's talk more. How can we get this to the kids? What are some ideas? And we still, in our bakery, do our quick breads and our muffins and those kinds of things, because we can do those and we can do them well. Now, am I going to say that we wouldn't go to her bulk, possibly in the future, her bulk, pour, add one thing and go, instead of doing all the mixing in the big bowls for ourselves? With our labor the way it is right now, I might be leaning that way. Still a scratch-based, great product that I'm cooking often so the smells are there, but I just made it 100% more efficient for my staff.
So I was going to ask you, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Talk to me about speed scratch, right? So you mentioned you do the whole muffin now. In the future, it might come from a trusted partner.
Could, absolutely.
So what other examples are you seeing? What are you thinking about?
Well, and I think in-house, like an egg mixture from a certain company that's out there, an egg mixture that's semi-scratch, rather than us scrambling our own eggs and doing this, we do a breakfast burrito in our brand called A-Town Eats. We make our own breakfast burrito. It's in a foil. We slap a sticker on it that's called A-Town Eats, and we sell it as a homemade breakfast burrito. We had to learn that we couldn't do it all. We couldn't do 400 breakfast burritos in the morning for our high school, so we had to do the mix. We never roll them the day before and freeze them because the tortillas.
Yep.
But we had to learn to make the mix before, and then we found a mix. I got people out here on the food show floor. There's 18 of us here, finding new things. It was a mix that was in a boil bag. It's still a delicious product, but now we're able to take that mix, then add our potatoes, and then do that all the morning of and just wrap it. And so it's learning how and listening to your front line saying, we're the end user, we're trying to do this, listening to them. We can't make 400 breakfast burritos. Shannon, we're coming in at 4:30 in the morning to make sure we're hitting that 7 o'clock time. I'm like, ooh, I don't want you to do that. And so it's just listening and making changes. And we found this great egg product. And usually it's your kitchen managers that are out there that come back to you and be like, you need to look at this. Mm-hmm. It's more efficient than what we're doing. We do our own peppers, and we chop those up. We put them in the freezer. When we do fajitas, we'll pull those out. So we have them all the time. Different things that you can do that you would do at your house anyways.
Processing peppers.
Yeah, we're processing peppers and we're freezing them right now. And so, yeah.
And I love that you said it's your kitchen managers. They're here. They're like roaming the aisles here. They're going to find things that you didn't even know existed.
That make it easier for them, because that's really what I'm looking for.
I mean, because it's human, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We always want to make our lives easier, and hopefully for the altruistic people out there, making my life easier will make your life better, and everybody lives in harmony. But that's like a huge plug for bringing your whole team, because I think perspectives are so different, right? You are at a director level, you looking at things in a certain way, and then somebody who's frontline will look at things in another way, and somebody who's very involved with budgeting or menu planning, they always have their different lens that they're bringing, and together you can really come up with something that is outstanding.
Oh yeah, and that's what you guys did over COVID. Like, your manufacturers came together and looked at things, all the products differently. And that was huge for us, like the boxes that we were building, the different things. We were building our own bags, different product lines going out together, and it was just coming together to take care of the future of this country, right? And even with, it's been 17 years, well, it's been 14 years since I was a kitchen manager, because I was a kitchen manager for 4 years. It's different now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, we have chefs, we have RDs, we have everything going on out there. It's different than even when I was a kitchen manager. So when I sit here and I say, well, I remember, they're like, no, you do not know now. you do. So I need to hear their perspective of what's really going out there. And each kitchen manager is a different facility. What they can and can't do out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just want to say, too, Shannon brought up a really good point about talking to manufacturers, and I can't believe you were intimidated to talk to a manufacturer, Miss Shannon.
I was.
Cannot believe
it's
that.
truth. Honest to God, I was.
But I would just say to everyone, please reach out to manufacturers. If you have an idea or a concept or just have a question about a product to make a change to, we love to hear that feedback, because a lot of times we just don't know. So we may think something is great, and it may not be that great as we think it is. But any kind of change or request, we love to get that feedback or that request to see if we could do it, because we want to help.
Yeah, and the ideas too. Sometimes you think your idea is so crazy and out there. I'm sure that's happened to you a few times, right,
Oh,
Shannon?
I get told no all the time.
But we have this saying, you already have the no, right? What's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
It's my current situation. If I go out and I ask the question, maybe I'll get a yes, maybe I'll get a maybe. Maybe we'll get talking. So
well, and even with food, you develop those relationships. I would never, if I had an idea, I wouldn't have a problem telling Laura. But you develop those relationships with your manufacturers, and even the equipment side. I have this crazy idea I've presented about a K8 line that I want, because my district is no longer building, sorry, and this is off topic, squirrel, sorry audience, this isn't about processing, but it's like a K8 line that goes from the bottom to the littles, the PKs, all the way up hydraulically, rather than changing. I've put that out to the equipment world. I've been talking about this for 2 years. Everybody's like, can't happen. So maybe somebody will, you know what I mean? But it's those, when you're out there, eventually.
You put it out there in the universe.
With that one product that she's talking about, 4 years? 4, it was not a quick, but they are the experts in the fact they have R&D departments. And, Jessica Shelley from Cincinnati Public Schools talks about rip off and duplicate. K-12, we don't have research and development departments. They do. Yeah. So if we all have ideas and we share them about processing and what that could look like in a food, we turn it over to the experts and say, what can you do with this? And then we have chefs and we have RDs that can do it on our end and create those recipes and send it forward, but it's a collaboration to have that end product and those ideas come forward. And it did take me a while to get comfortable in crazy ideas and letting them come forward and then saying, what can we do for the better of the kids, the staff, and our entire segment? And I am no longer afraid after 7 years.
Well, we're glad you're not.
Yeah.
And I think you said something when we're talking about this episode in particular about, and Laura had mentioned the relationships had shifted and deepened during COVID. And you said something that it's really easy when it's a bunch of people who have a really something in common, like a mission, a very important mission, and something to accomplish. So I think that's what we've seen, and those partnerships. And a lot of times we see each other as silos, industry here, and operators here, or even like K-12 or college, and it's so separate. And at the end of the day, it's not as distant or different as it seems like. And I want to bring up another thing that you brought up right before we came. And I hope that your students are not listening to this podcast, but I wanted you to talk about the A-Town Eats.
Yeah, we branded our breakfast burrito. Okay. Again, words matter, and I know manipulation is a word that people don't like. It is a marketing technique. You call it encouragement, whatever sets well. We told our kids that our breakfast burritos come from an outside restaurant brand, and we labeled it A-Town Eats. And so it's just a foil wrap that we wrap our burritos in. We stick a sticker on it, and they think it comes from that. And when we run out, we run out.
You told them not to make any more.
Yeah, do not make any more. Tell them we'll order more from the restaurant tomorrow. But we run out on our coffee carts and those kinds of things. But and lots of different coffee places and stuff are doing that, but with out there in K-12. But the one thing I wanted to say, Danielle, to what you said is, what we're doing is also a part of DEI, inclusivity.
Oh, sure.
And you said breaking down silos, and I think as a K-12, like including everybody in the mission, everybody from equipment to food to supplies to everybody is one piece. And I was like nervous because I thought, people are just trying to sell to me. They're not, whatever. And I had to get those walls broken down to be like, we're all on the same page.
And I think you see, especially in school nutrition, this cross-pollination, right?
Yes.
You see somebody who was a director for 20 years and then they'll go to industry. And I've seen some people in industry that started on the operator side and they'll come and then, they move again. So I think that that helps bring some of that, because it's in the end it's all about relationships and the common mission that is to feed kids. Because I know during COVID, the whole supply chain breaking down, one of the concerns that you all had was, what will it take to drive manufacturers away from K through 12? What is the next thing, right? And when that happens, what are we going to do? Because obviously we can't do it all.
We need each other.
Exactly. And so it's really interesting to see that, after we kind of like weather the big storm, and people are more and more committed, I feel like. Is that something that you've seen too, Laura and Shannon?
Well, I think a lot of us are very committed. And we're a K-12 centric company, so we're definitely committed. We have been since 1991. But I think the regulations are definitely the barrier to entry. But for all of us here, especially on the show floor, we are all committed. We wouldn't be here if we weren't committed to K-12 and to improving everything that we do.
And I would say, if nothing else, we realized how much we need our manufacturers, distributors, everybody is a piece of this puzzle, right? Like I taught a pre-con on putting the pieces of the puzzles together and what parts that is. And it is a huge puzzle piece. And, as I've moved through my leadership career and journey, you can't do it together. You can't do it by yourself. You need, it's like raising a kid. It takes a village. I have 5 children. And so it's really getting past yourself to say, this isn't about you. This is about something so much bigger than any of us. And looking at those partnerships, what can you do together? Having those conversations about recipes and quality food. What's out there in the trends? What is those great products that our customers are choosing? We are a restaurant brand, and I like to say we're the biggest restaurant brand in the nation. We are the K-12 restaurant segment brand, whatever. And so how do we look at what's out there and then make us the choice of our customers? And I think it is about scratch and deliciousness when you can. What can you do with the infrastructure and resources you have? And then what you can't do, go find you a partner. Go find somebody who can help you do that. And it's going to be a multitude. You don't have just one friend in the world. You have different friends. I go out to coffee with one girlfriend because I want to do this, one girlfriend because I want to do this, another friend because you don't have just one partner. You have multiple partners to get your mission done.
Absolutely. And even in the school system, right? The partnerships that you need, and we talk about awareness, the Made with School Lunch campaign that's out there, the Bring More to the Table about the complexity of the careers in school nutrition. It's not, we're talking about not only your frontline staff, you have the office staff, you have the people in budget, right? If they understand what you're trying to do, they work with you, right?
Yeah.
So the menu planning, the IT, the HR, that they know that you have to hire these people, you have to hire them quick. So I think it's bringing it, and I'm so glad that you brought up the diversity aspect, because the workforce is getting more and more diverse. As we see people retire, the generation that's coming in is the most diverse generation that's ever was in this country. And how can we make school nutrition a career of choice for them, right? Because it's always about choice. How can we make it attractive? I think a big selling point is this sense of mission, right? The new generation, they're very committed to their values, but also they have to see a path forward.
And getting outside of ourselves to serve different products in that food. Seeing all that, diverse menu, culturally responsible, all of the foods that we're bringing in for our students and our customers and also our staffs. Like, they get excited when it's a product that a manufacturer has made, that it looks similar to what they grew up on. I mean, even a grilled chicken, different things look different than what we make at home. But, bringing that in and introducing it into the schools is that inclusivity that we're trying to introduce across to everything. And I think for me, the biggest thing was thinking outside of the box, the whole Tico's and partnering with an outside commissary company. I mean, they do commissary for their family-owned restaurants, but then they do us as well. And now they're selling to other school districts with that recipe we created. Yeah.
And it's helping your community too, right?
Yes.
It's getting, I think a challenge for school nutrition is getting beyond the school walls, right?
Yeah.
And you need that, because sure, the kids are in there, but you need to sell to the parents. You need to sell to the community that what you have is great. Because, you have kids, I have kids. Sometimes they come and the story is not quite true. They like to embellish. And it was horrible. It wasn't horrible. It was actually great, because they didn't feel like they prefer to eat the cookies. So it's building that and empowering small entrepreneurs in your community.
Right, in outside restaurants. I have literally lunch with restaurant owners or franchisees to talk about, and I pick their brain. Tell me what's working. Tell me what's not working. Tell me what the kids or the high school students are choosing from you guys. You have to know what's going on out there and look what you're capable of doing and what you're not. And during COVID, I actually partnered with a local mom and pop restaurant. I gave them the container. They created me a lasagna bake inside of it. I couldn't pay for the whole thing, but then we had a funder who came in at a couple bucks. I paid $2 for it. It was a $4 product, and I bought 5,000. And after it was all said and done, this owner of this restaurant came and said, because of the partnership we had, I got to keep my 18 employees. And that was a restaurant. They were making it, and I was like, let me just take that product in here and serve it to our kiddos. And it only happened 3 times, but I was able to buy it took them 3 weeks to make those products. Because they're, one
Small.
restaurant.
Yeah.
But your partners can look so different.
Yeah. It's a good
And
point.
if you can look at what they look like, I would have never told you that an outside restaurant company could make me 10,000 lasagna.
Yeah.
And they had to use our freezers. It was crazy. They had to, make them and store them in our freezers because they didn't have the freezer space, and then we served them. But it's just, what does it look like? What can you do? What can't you do? And I love what Laura said. She doesn't know what she doesn't know. If I'm not honest with her, she doesn't know what she doesn't know.
Yeah, and I think it's just, thinking outside the box. And that's, what we came here to talk about, and I think you brought it on. I think you really delivered, Shannon.
Good
Laura.
job, Shannon.
Laura.
Shannon.
You do too,
Danielle.
and it's great to see the partnership, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you and the level of awareness, right? This is what I can do best. This I can't. So how
No.
can I still be true to my students that I'm feeding?
Parents do, everybody.
Everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I have to go outside, and it's great because I know that I have a clear conscience that what they're eating is clean, it's nutritious, it's something that I would have done if I had the capacity. So thank you so much for being here, Shannon and Laura, and sharing all your experiences and expertise. I like to think that I'm a little bit smarter after this conversation. I want to thank the audience too. It was great having everybody here. Next year we're going to have a bigger area because we weren't expecting so many people. We're thrilled that you all are here. And obviously listen to this podcast, this episode, and many others. Follow us on social media, and we're always looking for ideas for new episodes, for guests. So if you have any ideas, be like Shannon. Come after us. And there's no crazy ideas. We love them all. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.